Small island nations are calling for stronger climate action at the COP29 summit in Baku, amid signs that the world is far from honouring its pledge to move away from fossil fuels. Preliminary research shows carbon dioxide emissions from oil, gas and coal have risen to new highs this year, placing the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold further out of reach.
We're still pushing for the 1.5 degrees centigrade to be respected and to keep alive, because our people in the Pacific, we truly depend on this for our survival. And the other thing is climate financing. It has to be more accessible. We need more resources into the Pacific region, and we ourselves are trying our best to access Green Climate Fund.
And of course, boosting funds to help the vulnerable countries also in focus. A fresh draft of a UN climate deal out today suggests most developing nations are in favour of an annual commitment of at least $1.3 trillion from wealthy countries. UN Chief Antonio Guterres condemned the disproportionate impact of climate change and urged the global community to take immediate action.
And we need a new climate finance goal in COP29 that allows the mobilization of the trillions of dollars of finance developing countries need, with a significant increase in concessional public funds made now. That goal must provide clarity on how money will be mobilized.
And for more, we're joined by CNA's climate change correspondent Jack Bott. He's live in Baku. Jack, we're just hearing that draft of a climate deal suggests most developing countries are in favour of wealthy countries giving the $1.3 trillion. But generally, for deals like that, the holdout has never been developing countries, but the wealthier ones. What's the progress like on this particular deal?
That's right, Wei Su. We are starting to see the negotiating, the haggling, the various parties here pushing their own interests. And it all is centrally focused on this greater goal of raising vast sums of climate financing, specifically for climate vulnerable nations. And you mentioned this new draft that has started to circle around, and the figure that really jumps out is that $1.3 trillion US dollars. That is the commitment that developing nations are pushing for from richer nations every single year to help them cope with the impacts that they're starting to feel. Now, this is obviously a massive number. We are expecting that there would be serious pushback from some of those richer nations who won't be keen to outlay anything close to that amount of money, even though there are many estimates that say that that is the amount that is required. Right now, their commitment is only $100 billion US dollars a year, and for many years that has been a struggle to turn even what is a pledge into real money that flows through to these countries that need the money most. So, look, I think that it is an interesting number at this point. We will expect that these negotiations are going to continue over the next few days and into next week as well.
Oh, Jack, actually in the news in the last few weeks, the Philippines, 4 typhoons in as many weeks. Of course, there's no absolute direct link between climate change and severe weather, but there's a great deal of evidence suggests you get more severe weather more frequently because of climate change. Now, you spoke to the Philippine Environment Secretary earlier. What did she have to say about her country's priorities facing the extreme weather that the Philippines is facing and is doing right now?
That's right. I just spoke with Secretary Loizaga here in Baku. The Philippines, obviously a highly vulnerable climate nation. She has a few priorities for the country here. One is, of course, to secure more of that climate financing. She said the Philippines would be supportive of that $1.3 trillion. They're also looking at the just transition, renewable energy, and as well loss and damage. The Philippines has taken over the board. They're hosting the board for loss and damage, so they are quite involved in trying to mobilise some of these funds inside that loss and damage mechanism. We've heard today that that mechanism will start to pay out money as early as next year, even though it doesn't quite have as much money as those countries are hoping for. I also spoke to her about Donald Trump potentially upending a lot of the climate progress potentially all around the world when he retakes office early next year. She said that the Philippines is going to continue on with its climate ambitions, as the rest of the world should as well. Take a listen to what she had to say.
I think the U.S. is a very important country in terms of reaching our climate goals. The general feeling, I think, for the Philippines is that we march on. There are, of course, geopolitical and geostrategic considerations to every decision that we make, but we know how vulnerable we are, and therefore our paths will basically stay on track.
Secretary Loizaga there laying out, what is a really uncertain time for many developing countries, many countries in the global south, including right throughout Southeast Asia, watching and waiting to see what moves the US will make and whether this kind of progress and momentum around climate negotiations can continue if they do decide to leave the room, so to speak. 3 days down, Wei Su, quite a few more to do here, and we'll be keeping you across all of the developments.
I'll be looking forward to that. CNA's climate change correspondent Jack Bod live from Baku in Azerbaijan.